Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Knitting Traditions podcast. My name is Inga and you can find me on Instagram as Knitting Traditions and on Ravelry as Knitting Tradition. It's Monday and I just got off call. I live on the west coast of Norway and I've been working as a family doctor for almost 6 months, 2 weeks left, and then I will be moving. So this might be the second last episode from this place, and then I will just have to find a new location to record for you. I hope you're all doing well and that you're sitting inside warm and snugly with something warm to drink perhaps, or at least something delicious. I am drinking from my Mumi cup. I think this guy is called, in Norwegian he's called Snusmumriken. I'm not sure what he's called in English. In Norway you get these cups if you donate blood, so a lot of people, especially nurses, have a tendency to collect these mugs and they're really cute. I'm drinking some Christmas coffee. I'm trying to eat up and drink up as much as possible from my place here, so I have less things to move. I don't like wasting food and or I don't like waste in general, so I'm gonna try and eat and drink up as much as possible so that I have less to carry. Knitting. This is a knitting podcast. If you're new, you're most welcome here, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for subscribing and following along on this journey. It's been an incredible journey thanks to you guys. I love interacting and reading comments and replying to as many as possible, but there's a little lack of time issue in my life, but I read everything that you write and I really appreciate all of it. Today it's light out, at least it's snowy, and I'm wearing one of my maybe the sweater that I'm the most proud of. Not necessarily because it's a difficult pattern, but it's the first colorwork garment that I made. Before this, I think I freestyled some socks with like a Selbu rose on it, and that was kind of not a great project. I didn't know how to catch floats and it was cinched in, and naturally my next project was this one with 11 different colors or something along those lines, and I think some rows you had to hold 4 or 5 different strands at the same time. So that's a natural second garment in colorwork, right? No. But surprisingly it went really fine, because it was knit on, I think I knitted on either 2.5 or 3mm needles. So the stretches between the colors were very short, so the float thing wasn't a big issue for most of the rows. This is called the ocean sweater, by the way, and I will put everything below in the description box about what I talk about. It's called the ocean sweater. I can see the yoke here for you guys. And it was knit bottom up. I think the designer's name is Natasha something. I'll put it below. She's a Russian designer, but the pattern came in English. I have no idea how I came across it, but I fell in love with it. I was a student in Poland at the time. I lived in Poznan and there wasn't a lot of yarn stores available. There was one that had drops yarn especially, so I couldn't get my hands on the yarn that she used in her pattern. I think it's a Russian yarn, I'm not sure, but I ended up going to the store that I had available, and the original is knit with blue and some other colors, so I just picked somewhat similar colors here but more orangey tones, and moss green for the main color. And all of these colors Let's see, let's stand up. All of the colors in this sweater are knit with drops alpaca, except for the yellow. I couldn't find a bright yellow in the drops alpaca, so the yellow is drops flora, I believe. I'm sorry if you hear a little bit of noises around. My dog is walking around the apartment and her claws make a little bit of a scratchy sound on the floor. It's a very warm sweater. I should have knitted it one size bigger. I mean, it does fit, but I can't really have layers underneath it. It's very form-fitting. It's 0 ease on me, so I should have gone up a size. I don't remember which size I ended up choosing, but I should have gone up a size. I think I was a bit optimistic. I tend to do shortcuts sometimes. I don't know if you guys do, but I'm a very impatient person, so I sometimes go down a size just because it usually still fits fine, and then that's maybe a little bit less yardage, so maybe I save some money on the skeins, and also it's quicker to knit. But for projects like this, I wish I would have rather gone bigger than just what will fit, just fit. And who knows, you know, my size might get bigger with the years, who knows, or smaller, but better for something to be a little bit too big than too small. And I do the same with socks. Sometimes I finish them too quickly, or like I start decreasing for the toe too soon, and then they're just a little bit too snug. So I actually ended up ripping back the toe on my last sock project to make it longer, because I saw that I had been a little bit too quick on the trigger to cast it off. Yeah, it's really warm. Alpaca fiber usually is warmer than wool fiber. I'm not sure if the drops alpaca is 100% alpaca or if it's mixed with wool. I think it might be 100% alpaca. Alpaca fiber, usually the yarn is also more drapey because it's softer, and garments tend to stretch. That hasn't happened with this one. And these sleeves are maybe just a bit too short for my liking, so if it were to drape, that would also be fine. I know a lot of my dog, sorry. I think she wants to say hello. She keeps walking around my feet. So this is Pia. She likes snuggles. Yeah, a lot of yarns that have alpaca also combine it with a bit of wool fiber, because that gives kind of the best properties of both. So the softer, warm alpaca, and then the warm wool that is also less drapey, so it keeps the shape a bit more, which is nice. I don't know how long she will want to sit here. What are you guys knitting on? I was wondering, I usually like to ask like a question so I can read it in the comments, and I'm really curious to see what your favorite knitting project is, like your all-time favorite of the things that you have made. I would love to see. I'm always looking for some inspiration. And I wanted to record last week, but it was just a busy life, so hopefully the editing won't take too long with this video. We can hope. And yeah, I need to get this dog off my lap so I can show you some finished objects. Alright, so last time I was knitting on this giant scarf. It's called Mellomskjerf by Drople Design. One of my favorite designers, because she uses my favorite wool, and also her patterns use up most of the yarn. So this is a gigantic scarf with color work, and I think it uses see, tight here. I should have stretched that out. Oh well. It uses up 3 balls or skeins of the main color, and the color I used was cognac. And then you have 2 contrasting colors. I used this gray and this white color. And you know what? I'm gonna turn off one of the lights and see if the colors will show up a bit better. I'm not used to having daylight, so... Alright, yeah, so much better. I used the grey and the white. The cognac and the grey is Tinde by hillesvåg, which is a Norwegian pelt wool, which is 100% wool, quite stiff when you're working with it, but it softens up nicely and it blooms and gets a lovely halo, like a mohair halo kind of, when you wash it. But the white is sol, a Norwegian lamb's wool, because the pelt wool is a grey color naturally, so they don't bleach it to get a white color, which is nice. But that meant I needed to get the white in a different color, and I used stash yarn that I had. So I'm gonna get really warm from doing this, but it's a huge scarf. It will be so nice and warm when it's cold outside. It kind of doubles as a cowl because you knit it in the round, and it's quite big. So, and then for the tassels, the pattern says to use the gray, 5 gray here and 5 white on this side. But I decided to do every second, just because I saw a photo on Instagram of a different version who had done that, and I liked the look of it. Whew. I spoke about before how ideally I should have picked more of a contrasting color for this. I did dabble around in my stash trying different versions, but I like the subtle look of this the most because it just made the cognac color kind of be in focus and not over dominated by anything. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and in the pattern she tells you how to make this, and she recommends steaming them to get them fluffy, but I actually soaked them in water because I do think that I'm allergic to lanolin or something that is in a lot of these rustic wools that I love, because I do notice my hands getting eczema, especially when knitting with this, but it's worth it because it's the best. So, but yeah, that's why I washed it, and it bloomed up really nicely, and I'm excited to be wearing this outside now that it's really cold here. And I also finished these socks, which is knit in the hillesvåg Fjord garn, and it's a sock yarn from that producer. It does have nylon in it, but it's not superwash. These will be really nice and warm and snuggly. I used the Mors Hel pattern, which are being tested, and I hope to have it released by Friday maybe. And because I have gotten a lot of feedback from the testers already, so I'm just gonna fix little spelling mistakes and then it should be good to go. But the Mors Hel pattern is written in this 2-colored version, and I also made a version if you want to hold it with mohair, so that would make it like a sport weight yarn. So I used this pattern. I just knit 4 purl 4 for the whole thing instead, and then on the bottom I just did stockinette. And usually when you knit socks, when you get to the heel, for a lot of different heel constructions, you split evenly, so you have, let's say, 30 stitches here and 30 stitches here. but I like the heel flap to be bigger to have more fabric on the heel, so I stole 2 stitches on each side from the top to go in on the heel here. And then I just, when I picked up here the 2 stitches on the top, I knit them purlwise so that I kind of gave them back to the patterning on the top. And I really like this folded down part of the sock. It just gives it a more snuggly look, kind of. Yeah, so I really like it. Nice, cozy, rustic Raggsokker. And yeah, I wanted to give you a report on how it's been going to wear the mohair socks, because I've been wearing them basically every day, at home, at work, in my shoes, to just kind of wear them with a lot of friction and wear them down to see if there's any holes starting to form, and there is nothing. There is, however, as you can see, felting. Mohair is said to not have a tendency to felt because of its long fibers that are so slick, so it kind of just slides out. But it did felt on the heel, which is probably where it has a lot of friction on my feet. But it doesn't seem to be wearing through to start forming holes or anything. It's just more sturdy. So that works fine. And I'm probably gonna use some mohair leftovers to knit even more socks with mohair in the future, because then you can substitute it for nylon if you have some yarn without it that you would like to use in socks. And I was knitting on this last time. This is the Augustins number 11. It is going to be a dress. I had a lot of Hexa. This is a, let's see, this is a, there. This is a 100% alpaca yarn from DSA, or House of Yarn, and it is the softest. It's a chained yarn, so kind of similar to Drops Air and Snefnug and other chained yarns, and it's really, really soft. And I had a lot of it in my stash, and for those of you who watched the last episode, I was wanting to make a knit from stash cowl. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take my dog out of the room. Sorry. I was wanting to make a knit from stash make along for the whole of 2021, and I've already had a few small makers contacting me about donating prizes for it. So the name of the make along is Stash Along. Just, it rolled off the tongue really easy. There were so many great suggestions for the name, but I went with Stash Along. So there is a finished thread on Ravelry where you can post a photo. You can make whatever you want as long as it's something that you've had in the stash since before 2021. And this is some stash yarn that I had a lot of. And I'm holding the yarn double, and I realized that I would not have enough of the beige for the skirt of the dress. So I have made the I-cord edges in green. And what I think I'm gonna do to kind of make sure that I have the skirt long enough, and also to use up as much of the stash yarn that I have, is I'm gonna do the skirt marled, so 1 strand of beige and 1 strand of green, and I think that will tie it all nicely together, because I think if I were to do only green or only beige, it would not be enough yarn. So I think by marling it, it will be perfect. And if I don't like it, this is a really nice crop top. I tried it on and I really liked it. And I made the sleeves short just because somebody told me that they had knit with Hexa before and it stretched out a lot. which is to be expected because it's an alpaca yarn and alpaca tends to stretch and drape. So I made the sleeves short to account for that, so even if they're short, they're still nice, and when they stretch out, they will be the perfect cuff length. So ready to go, just need to make the skirt, but it's knit on 10mm needles, so it's super fast. So yeah, I think I will get that done soon so I can wear it while it's still really nice and cold outside. And oh yes, this is the yarn that I used for the Fjord. This is the Fjord sokkegarn, which I used for my Raggsokker. And when I got this at a knitting festival in the fall, the man told me that I would need 2 skeins because it took 1.5 to make a men's pair of socks, and he didn't know what I needed for a woman's size, so I got 2. However, I didn't even use up 1 for my size. I think I have this much left after making my pair, so I probably can make a men's pair here. I don't need them to be knee-high socks anyway, so that should be fine. And I was on call for this weekend, which gave me a lot of knitting time because it was quite quiet. And I had this yarn in my stash. It's a 100% natural cashmere by Cardiff. And it's also like a chained yarn between fingering and sport weight, I would say, or like a heavy fingering. And this yarn I got from the store Beautiful Knitters in London. I've been there once myself, and I really love how she showcases smaller makers, indie dyers and such. Beautiful store. And this was intended for a cow pattern of hers, but when I touched it, I just knew that this needed to be a hat for me. My forehead is maybe the most sensitive part on my body, skin-wise, so I do struggle with having headpieces that don't itch. So I made myself a hat, and as you see, I still have some left. I had two of these balls, so I maybe have half a ball left, which I'm putting into my little scrap bucket. This is a very simple hat. I just freestyled it. I knit a twisted rib border and then made the top part with decreases. And I'm expecting that this will stretch out quite a bit. It's 100% cashmere, a very soft fiber, and my experience is that the softer the fiber, the more it tends to stretch. So I've accounted for that. I can wear it like this now, and maybe if I wash it, it will also shrink back to this shape. And then when it's too scratchy, no, not too scratchy, when it's, if it stretches out, I can always just wear it like this, like a kind of slouchy hat. I don't really tend to wear slouchy hats, but it's nice to have that as an option. And my boyfriend noticed on Instagram that I had made this yesterday, so he already hinted that he wanted to get this, but this one's mine. It's the softest garment that I own. And I wish cashmere wasn't as an expensive fiber as it is, because this would make the softest sweater ever. But one tiny piece of luxury garment is really nice to own as well. So this will get a lot of wear, I think. Maybe not when going skiing and such, when it's windy, because it's not a thick garment, but it's very warm for being so thin, but it's not windproof, of course. I think it will be really nice to wear going to the city when I move, on cafes and such. It's just a really lovely color, and it has a lovely fluff. And I use a Norwegian cast on, which is really nice and stretchy. And of course you could also put elastics in to make it stay up, but I like to be able to wear it both ways, sort of. So yeah, really happy with this, and it knit up so fast. I think I used 3.5mm needles, and really happy with it. And more things. I have been knitting a lot. Okay, so I've been working on my cabled sweater. Still, it's quite time consuming to work on this garment. Now you can see the color in all its glory. This is Holst Supersoft Held Double, and the color is cinnamon. And I finished the back, so I've split for the sleeves on the side, and I finished the back with some gradual decreases up towards the neck. But I am worried that, you know, this is not going to be wide enough and also have a neckline. So I think what I might do is, when I knit the sleeves, I might have a section from, instead of binding off here, I might have a section going up like this with the braid on the sleeve that I will attach here, and then I can bind that off diagonally so that it kind of branches out, making a bigger opening towards the front, and then the neck shaping in the big front of the sweater, and that will make enough space. And if not, I will just have to rip back, which I really don't want to do with all of this cabling going on, because there's always something happening on every second row. So if I rip back, there's a huge chance that I will mess something up along the way. So I hope I don't have to do that. I'm working on the front now. I haven't started shaping the neck yet. I'm not quite sure at what point I will start doing that. So I guess I'm around here now. But soon I'll start shaping for it. I just need to figure out as I go how to do it, because I'm not following a pattern. I'm making it up as I go. And I think I know what I want to do now. I want to shape for the neck and shoulders, and then figure out how to do the sleeves. I will probably have to do bottom up if I want to make this segment, because it's easier to bind off in cabling than to start cabling as you're increasing, if that makes sense. We'll see what happens. I am using this cone, and honestly, even though I've knitted this much, it doesn't really seem like I have touched the cone yet. And I just caked off a few of these cakes before starting, so it's easy to hold it double. And I have another one of these quite big, so I think it should get me hopefully through the sweater, and if not, I'll just break the yarn, cake up some more, and then continue. And I did account for it shrinking lengthwise, like the Crimson Stitchery podcast, Anushka, she said that happened, that it shrinks lengthwise. So I made the body long for me, fitting for my boyfriend, so we'll see if it will get too small for him, but it will fit me. And I also did the same then for the front and back pieces, that I made them quite long so that they can shrink up. And if they don't, it's just a baggy sweater on me and it will fit him. So either way, it will work out nicely. And I'm knitting it on 3mm carbon needles. So it's quite a tight gauge, which I love. And also I'm not sure if it will shrink as much since I have cables going all over the sweater. I think that might also help a little bit because the fibers aren't going the same way. They're kind of moving around. And I cast on another project because I spent some of my weekend going over my scraps, making them into balls. So it's more, first of all, more aesthetically pleasing to have it a bit more tidy, and it's also easier to kind of go through and see and feel how much I have and kind of envision what kind of projects I could use my scraps for. So I had some bigger scraps that I didn't really want to put into the stash of untouched skeins, and also they were so big that it didn't make sense to unravel and make them into balls. So instead I casted on a new sock. It's also the Mors Hel pattern, it's just what comes naturally to me to knit. So I cast on this and I'm loving the colors. So this is left over from my hat in Arwetta by Filcolana, and this is also Arwetta by Filcolana, which I used for a hat for a family member. And I'm knitting it on 2.25 millimeters. I think these are 12-inch circulars, which I prefer over the 9-inch circulars because they're not as uncomfortable in my hands. But I cast on with the wrong needle size. I cast on with 2.75 and I noticed a few rows in, but honestly I don't mind because I do like it when the cuff is big and stretchy, it doesn't cinch in too much because my leg is bigger than my feet. So I'm going to do the same for the second sock, to knit the cuff in 2.75 and then switch to 2.25 for the rest of the sock. And usually for the toe, I tend to go down again because then I change to magic loop, because you can't do toe decreases on a small circular because you just can't. You can't do it. If you know, you know. So I usually change to magic loop and I go down in needle size because that makes the fabric even more dense, which is good because my toe gets a lot of friction. So it's just nice to have it even more dense. So that's like little things that I do for myself. Not always for other people, it depends, you know. If you knit for yourself, you know how you wear your socks and where they get the most pressure or friction, or where they tend to get holes. I've never gotten holes in my socks, but I have in stockings, so that's why I know it's nice to have a little bit more dense on the toes for me. So yeah, because I had this much left of the yarns, so they're not full skeins, but they're almost full skeins, and I figured it's better to use them for something nice than to, yeah, not know where to put them exactly, because they didn't really fit into scraps and they didn't fit into full skeins. So I could probably make 2 pairs of socks with this because this goes a long way. Because for this I used also Arwetta for the marzipan color, and a little bit, I think I used a little bit more than half a skein. So if I switched these around, I could make 2 pairs. Or I can just make the foot longer and give them to someone with longer feet. We shall see what I do. But yeah, I'm really happy with these, and I'm keeping them in my llama bag that I got from knitting Beautiful Knitters as well. I just love this llama. She's so cute. So that's all that I have been knitting this week, I think. Yes. Considering that I've been working every day it's not that bad, and I'm pretty pleased with the progress. Definitely knitting on the cable sweater is a slower progress, but it's also really nice. I just need to make sure that I have enough time and brain capacity to work on the cables. I don't know about you guys. I used to be the kind of person who knit one project at a time, but I became more and more obsessed with knitting, and now I'm at the point where I feel like I need to have different kinds of projects for different kinds of settings. Like the cable sweater, I can't take that with me wherever to knit on because I need to focus on it. Socks is easy and transportable as long as I'm not working on maybe like the heel closures or like the more fiddly parts. I can knit wherever. I can walk outside and knit. It's nice to have something simple to knit in the round when you're just tired and you just need to kind of meditate with your knitting. So I like to have a little bit different things on the needles to kind of go with the situation and the mood. I don't know if you guys are the same. It works for me. So yes, let's sit and knit for a bit. I have been watching or rewatching a lot of shows. So for the Netflix section, oh, and by the way, the Rustic Knitalong is still running until the end of February. There's a finished thread on Ravelry where you can post if you want to win. Just some natural fibers or plant fibers, make something with that. There's more info on there if you're interested. And for the stash along, I'll probably be drawing prizes throughout the year. Definitely on Ravelry, and also maybe if you use the stash along hashtag on Instagram. But yes, Netflix. I've been watching, I rewatched Last Kingdom. That was only 2 seasons, so that went quite quickly. And then I watched the latest episodes of Vikings. I'm really into anything Viking related. My last name, oh, maybe I shouldn't put that on the podcast. My last name is from, or both of my last names is from where my grandfathers lived, or one of them still lives. And it means something, I'm not going to say exactly because, you know, privacy and everything, but it means something Viking related. My father grew up and my grandparents live on the same place as they believe Harald Hårfagre, one of the most famous Vikings, is buried. There are a lot of Viking tombs there, and at least his kind of, not castle because they didn't live in castles, but like the place where he lived is a few meters away from my grandparents' house. So the Viking history is quite interesting to me. My name, Inga, is from Norse mythology. It's one of the names of one of the gods, the fertility god. And they had several names, these old gods. So I think it's kind of interesting. There was also, we have like a family tree that goes back to the Viking ages on my dad's side that one of his great aunts created. She did like family history research. So there was a Inga Vikingsdottir in 1102, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I've been enjoying watching those. I did prefer the first 3 seasons of the show, but it's still nice entertainment. And then I watched some other shows on Netflix. I finished Key House, which was also a nice entertainment. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of shows and then I kind of forget things. That's why I can rewatch things, because my memory doesn't leave me with all the details. it might also be because I'm always knitting when I watch TV, so I don't always pay attention to everything. So then I can rewatch things. And I'm considering maybe rewatching Outlander again, because that is a great show. So if you haven't watched Outlander, you should. There's also, I think there's made like a book with knitting patterns based on that show, because the main character, she does wear several knitted garments. So if you're into like historical drama shows, that's a great one. And yeah, what are you guys up to? Have you had a busy week? Are you knitting? Are you feeling hopeful for the future? I am, at least, hoping to be hopeful. I am excited to move, although I will miss this place. I do hope I still get a lot of knitting time. And I need to find some corner of the apartment I'm moving back to that I can record for you. There will be a problem with natural lighting, but I'm hoping it's okay to use artificial lighting, and that I can still show you guys all the things. Even if it means sitting in the corner on my bed, because it's the only place with a wall that's not dark wood. We shall see what happens. And yeah, I think it's gonna be good. Things have to get better, right? And I'm looking forward to going through my stash when I move back, because I do have some of my stash here, but I have a lot left where I used to live and where I'm moving back to. So I'm hoping, if I have the time and energy, to kind of go through and organize it again. I try to organize it either for the yarn thickness, or like mohair on its own, and then I have like fingering, sport, DK, thicker yarns, because then it's easier if I see a pattern that I like to kind of figure out what yarn I could potentially use for it from my stash, or to just go in my stash and then find a pattern. So I think I want to revisit my stash and go through it one more time. It's also just nice to re-see what you have. The stash along for this year, it doesn't mean that you can't get anything new. It's just to try and love what you already have, and I'm definitely gonna try and see if I can use up more from my stash instead of buying to make it grow. So either kind of trim it down, or at least not get a larger one. We shall see how that goes. I did try the same thing last January, like a no-buy thing. That didn't work, because I had the rule that, well, if I travel somewhere, I'm allowed to get yarn, because there's no knowing if I ever get to go back and get that yarn again. But I don't tend to buy yarn where I'm at anyways. I love to travel, and I love to travel to whatever local yarn store there is wherever I travel. So yeah, that rule basically maintained my way of lifestyle as the same way it had been the year before. So my stash grew. And so yeah, no, I'm not gonna put any rule on myself this year. I'm just gonna try and love what I have with no rules, no expectations. And so far it's going great. I haven't bought anything new this year. I mean, we're only halfway into January, but still, it's nice to use up a little bit of what I have before I move. I'm still gonna bring it all with me, but as a garment then, instead of skeins. And yeah, I'm still really into trying out new yarns and, you know, discovering new indie dyers and small makers. I just love it, and I hope a lot of you guys love it because we have to support them, and it's just nice to share in the love for our craft. So yes, so what I'll be doing, so next week I'll be working on these to use up these scraps, and I'll be working on finishing my dress, probably on 10mm needles. That should be quite doable. I just don't know if I have any elastics, because you're supposed to put elastics into the waistband, and I think also the cuffs, maybe the neck, I'm not sure. But I don't know if I have any elastics here. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. I can still wear it without the elastic until I move. It's not like I have to keep it pristine and untouched. These garments are meant to be worn after all. And then I hope I can finish knitting the front piece of the cabled sweater. But I'm not putting any pressure on myself. And who knows, maybe I'll find some other things in my stash to cast on. I am really enjoying going through it and just envisioning all the things it could be. I have also made a few little like project bags within my stash where I've paired up some wool fiber with some mohair fiber, ready to go to be a sweater. That's what I picked up, one of those project bags when I did the balloon sweater. So I have a few, I think 5 sweater quantities in my stash ready to be made into something. So maybe I'll pick one of those, or maybe I'm really enjoying my little basket of scraps, so maybe I will use some more scraps. And if not, I still have some space in my scrap basket for some other scraps. So we shall see what I do. Yes, if you are making something from your stash and you're on Instagram, please use the stashalong hashtag, because I love seeing what everyone is making, and I'm also following the Rustic knitalong hashtag, and I love to see all the beautiful projects that you guys are making with your natural fibers. And yeah, this is not a combo that I have ever thought about before. It's like a squirrel brown and like a cockscraw. It's like it's not black, it's like a very dark gray. I'm really loving how they look together. No, don't have to worry about these ones getting dirty because you're not going to see it, which is nice. And I have the cutest little stitch marker on it. It's like a little loop with a bead on it. Can you see that? I wish these were earrings. I got these from the same stores here, the Beautiful Knitters. And I wear a lot of loop earrings, so I really thought these were cute, and I wish they were also earrings. So, business idea. If anyone makes these, make them into earrings if that's possible. Somebody contacted me saying that they also use their rings for stitch markers, which I thought was like a nice idea. If you're on the go and you don't have a stitch marker, you could put your ring on there. I usually just take a piece of scrap yarn and I make a loop with a knot, and then I use that as like a emergency solution until I get my proper stitch markers on the needles. There's lots of things to do. That's how my grandmother used to knit. She had a lot less knickknacks for her knitting than what I do. She just used a piece of scrap yarn, and then she had her yarn and she had her needles, and I think back then it was either just a long circular needle she had or DPNs. Now we have like, we use magic loop, we have like the small circulars, lots of different producers. We're quite lucky to have so many options. This is my preferred needle, the 12-inch, both for socks and sleeves, because I'm much quicker knitting in the round than I am any other style. And I posted on Instagram on my story like a 20-second video of how I knit. I tried recording it myself, so it's not the best quality, but if you're interested to see how I knit, there's a video showing a small piece of it there. Yes, so I would love to hear what your favorite knitted garment or whatever, what's the best thing you've ever knitted that you love the most or wear the most. I would love to hear. And I will see you guys soon, hopefully in a week, maximum 2, I hope. And I hope you have a wonderful time until then, and talk to you soon. Bye.